Welcome to another episode of SCFGLive, Science Club for Girls Live. I'm Hannah with Science Club for Girls, and that was Mr. Music with a brand new instrument. Very fun. Thanks, Mr. Music, and thanks for bringing your brand new instrument. It's always good to hear some new tunes. Well, I'm so excited that everyone is here today. I see Shalaya and Malaya are here, our superstar scientists. Be sure to write your name in the chat so I can say a special shout out for you. Now, I'm really excited because Shalaya and Malaya are going to teach us all about conduction and radiation today. But first, we need to bring in our super scientist friend, Namisha, to say hello. Let's bring her in.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
Well, I was running in here to say hi to you, and I am sweating. It's really getting hot outside, and it's getting warmer inside my house. It almost feels like it's summer, but believe it or not, it's still technically spring. Summer officially starts on June 20th, which is the summer solstice.
Summer solstice? Wait, what is that, Namisha?
Well, it's when the northern hemisphere, where we are, is the most tilted towards the sun, and we have the longest day of the year because of this. After the summer solstice, it's officially summer until the fall.
Oh, that's so cool. It's actually reminding me of our episode last season about the reason for the seasons. If you forget that episode or haven't checked it out yet, definitely check that out. It's a really, really good one. So great connection, Namisha.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm excited to learn more about heat today so that I better understand how higher temperatures affect the world around me.
Me too. But first, we got to talk about last episode because it was awesome. We were joined by our really good friends at the Harvard Women in Chemistry group, and they taught us all about acids and bases.
And we learned just how we can tell if an item is an acid or a base by just using cabbage juice. For example, lemon juice was an acid because it turned bright purple, while bleach was a base because it turned blue. We also saw that an acid in our breath caused the water and cabbage juice mixture to turn purple when we blew the bubbles into this mixture.
Super cool. And instead of cabbage juice, a lot of scientists use things called pH strips to tell if things are acidic or basic. Just like the cabbage juice, pH strips turn different colors when exposed to an acid or a base.
Yeah, my favorite part about last week was seeing inside a real-life chemistry lab. It was amazing. And all that technology and equipment they get to use every day to help them experiment just like we get to do.
Me too. It was awesome. I love to see them wearing those super cool goggles and lab coats. It was awesome. And today, we're actually going to be able to meet another scientist and her super cool daughter. Shalaya is a scientist with National Grid, and her daughter, Malaya, is going to help her do an experiment about heat in their very own kitchen. Namisha, you ready to take a look?
Yes, totally ready. I'm so excited.
Let's take a look.
Look, I want you to say, hi. Ready?
Hi.
1, 2, 3. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Shalaya and this is Malaya. Today we're learning about heat conduction. So heat conduction is when heat is transferred through molecular agitation or vibrations without any movement of the object as a whole. So heat can also be conducted from one material to another, like water to a spoon, through the water molecules vibrating against the spoon's molecules. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You did? Wonderful. Okay, so how are we going to demonstrate this today? We are going to use what? Are we going to use a spoon?
Yeah.
A wooden spoon?
Yeah.
What's this one made of? Plastic, right? A plastic spoon. What's this one?
A gold spoon.
This is a metal spoon, right? And what is this?
Butter.
Butter, right? And we have a pot, right? With some, what's in there?
Butter.
Water. That's right. Good job. Okay?
I saw bubbles.
You saw bubbles? First things first, we gotta heat up the molecules in the water, right? Right? We gotta get them to move faster, right? So let's put them on the stove and heat it up. So we put the water on the stove and we're gonna let it come to a boil, right? Yeah, we let our water boil. What did we do? We put our butter on our spoons, right? That's the last one, right? And once our water heats up, we're gonna put these in the water to see how fast they melt, right? Which one do you think is gonna melt the fastest? The plastic one, the wooden one, or the metal one? Which one? Plastic one? I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so now our water is boiling and we're gonna put our spoons in, right? And we're gonna watch it. But only grown-ups touch the stove, right? Right? Okay, let's do it. So we have
Don't take it. I can't touch a wooden stove.
Okay, look it. Our butter already melted. Right?
Yeah.
Look at that. It melted. Still hard. Still very hard. But the metal spoon won. There's no more butter because it melted, right?
Yeah.
So after 2 minutes, the metal spoon wins. Learned that metal heats up faster and conducts heat faster, right? Butter on the metal spoon almost immediately melted away, right? And the butter on the wooden spoon melted a little bit. Meanwhile, the butter on the plastic spoon, that stayed firm the whole time, right? That's how heat conduction works. The heat was transferred by moving molecules within the spoons. The spoons themselves don't move, right? Right? Did you have fun?
Yes.
You had lots of fun?
Yes.
That was awesome and adorable. Super, super cool how Shalaya and Malaya made a hypothesis and conducted an experiment. Now, Malaya's hypothesis was that the plastic spoon was going to melt the fastest. But what did you think was going to happen, Amisha?
Well, I thought the butter on the wooden spoon might melt the fastest because I was thinking about how wood made fires burn more, like when I think of a fireplace. But it turns out the wooden spoon was in the middle.
Yeah, that's a great hypothesis based on your previous knowledge. I like that you incorporated that. Great way to make a hypothesis. And as we saw in the video, it actually turned out to be the metal spoon that melted the butter the fastest. And the plastic spoon actually hardly melted the butter at all. It was still pretty hard even after 2 minutes.
Yeah, so Hannah, I know in science there's always like a vocab word to describe the things we observe. So why did this happen? And is it called something?
Yeah, great point. There always is a vocab word. And in this case, we observed a process called heat transfer. We actually talked about heat transfer in our episode with convection with our junior mentor, Olivia. If you didn't get to see that episode, go back and check it out. Now, heat transfer occurs when heat energy moves from one place to another, or one object to another. And there are 3 different types of heat transfer, as you can see in this picture. There's conduction, there's convection, and there's radiation. Now, we already know that convection occurs when heat is transferred through the movement of liquid or gas. But today, we're going to be able to talk about these other 2 types, conduction and radiation.
Yeah, as Shalaya explained, conduction is when heat is transferred between 2 objects that are touching. And if you touch a hot stove on accident and it's really too hot, that's conduction. The heat from the hot stove is transferred to your hands.
That's a great example. And another example is when you hold an ice cube in your hand on a really hot summer day. What happens to that ice cube, Misha?
Ooh, it melts.
That's right. The heat from your own body is transferred to the ice cube because they're in direct contact with each other, and the ice cube starts to melt. It goes through a phase change.
Yeah, so in the experiment we just watched, the butter was touching the spoons, and the spoons were in very hot boiling water. And since the butter and spoon were touching, this must have been conduction.
Exactly. Conduction happens through direct contact. So when Shalaya turned on the stove, it got hotter. That heat was transferred to the pot, which was transferred to the water, which was transferred to the spoons, and then transferred to the butter, which is really cool. A conduction train, basically.
Yeah, and as we saw in the experiment, some of the spoons heated up faster than others because of what they're made of. The metal spoon got really hot really fast because metal is what we call a conductor of heat, which means the metal absorbs this heat faster, which causes the spoon to get hot and the butter to then melt.
Yeah, and I just made a connection, actually. We said that this kind of works like a train of heat transfer, one thing going to the other, going to the other. And we also said that things that cause this to happen really fast and are good at transferring heat are called conductors, like a conductor on a train. Love connections. But anyway, a second type of heat transfer that we also need to talk about is radiation. Unlike conduction, where things need to be in direct contact with one another, radiation doesn't involve any touching at all. Think of how the sun feels really, really hot on a hot summer day. Now, we're not touching the sun, but the sun is actually still giving us warmth. And how that's happening is that the heat from the sun is actually transferring through waves in space, like waves of energy. Then those waves hit our face and it feels warm because they're absorbed by our bodies. And the longer we sit in the sun, the more energy is absorbed by our bodies and the hotter we feel.
Oh, Hannah, I just thought of another example of radiation. It's the heater in my bedroom. My mom always calls it a radiator. Now I know why. As the radiator heats up, it radiates heat out into my room, keeping me really toasty in the winter.
That's a great example. And another great example of radiation because you're not directly touching the radiator. Instead, it's still able to transfer the heat just through the air, basically. Now, young scientists, when you're around the house, make sure to observe places where you see conduction, convection, and radiation occurring and write them down in a science notebook or just a piece of paper. It's super cool to observe science that's happening all around us every day. And in 2 weeks, Namisha and I, and maybe a special guest, are going to experiment with all 3 forms of heat transfer by making our own solar ovens to cook some yummy, yummy s'mores.
Wow, that's going to be so much fun. And I heard from a secret source that special guest is Dr. Marbles because he's going to join us for our s'more making.
No way.
Yeah, but now But now, Hannah, I need to cool down. Get it?
I get it! Because we're talking about heat and cool and, oh, you're so funny, Namisha. Well, it's been another good episode filled with laughs, smiles, and of course, science. And I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Shalaya, Malaya, and to National Grid. This episode is brought to you by National Grid, who supports Science Club for Girls' mission in making STEM exciting and accessible to all. Both National Grid and Science Club for Girls support girls and women in STEM and are working towards making STEM more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Gotta love that. All right. Well, Namisha, it's been a great episode. I loved having you here. Can't wait for another one next week. Dr. Music, Mr. Music, are you ready to play your new instrument? All right. It's been another great episode of
SCFGLive.
You need some practice on that new instrument, Mr. Music. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.